Hello.
Hello, and welcome back again. I'm Candace.
And I'm Val.
And welcome to our Closing the Early Literacy Gap podcast.
This podcast is for anyone who has anything to do with small children or anyone working with those in the early stages of literacy learning or learning how to read.
Yes, parents, teachers, administration.
People who are training or coaching teachers in any way. Anyone.
This podcast is for anyone.
We are now on episode 10.
Yay!
The Big 10.
Yes.
And we're going to talk in this episode just about reading to and with kids.
Yes, which is so important.
It is really important. So there's basically 3 different ways to read with kids. There is reading to them.
Yes.
There's reading with them. And there's listening to them read.
Right. And all 3 are crucial.
Critical.
And when to start, right?
Yeah.
So even as a brand new baby, you can be reading to your kids, just exposing them to those words.
Well,
I did.
You were reading when you were a baby.
No. Adult, reading to your your new baby. What are you laughing about? I wasn't reading as a brand new baby.
You said, even as a brand new baby, you can start.
You can start reading to your kids. Oh, I get, okay. All right. Okay. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I gotta get hold.
That's not what I meant. I meant when you have a brand new baby,
you can start reading to them. And actually, you can even read to them in the room.
Yes, you can.
I did that a couple times.
Yes.
Anyway. So, yeah, reading to your kids, you can start right away. And what does that do? Like, how does that benefit them to read to them when they're so little and they can't maybe even understand the language?
Because it just exposes them to those words.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's how language is learned, right? Is being exposed to those words. So when you're exposing kids to those words, especially at a young age, you're helping their brain develop. Yeah. And you're helping store
and
those
we did an earlier episode about talking to your kids.
Yes, we
did.
It's
the same thing, I think we even mentioned in an earlier episode about how when you read with your kids, you're giving them more opportunity to build vocabulary.
Yes.
And background knowledge.
Yes.
And the truth is, you can't really teach reading comprehension. Teachers try.
Right.
They try to go, okay, let's learn about how to do the main idea and all these kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you can teach them strategies like that. But the truth is, kids aren't going to comprehend without background knowledge.
It's true.
Background knowledge is the number one thing. And you can't teach background knowledge. You can only build it.
Yes.
So the earlier you start building that background knowledge,
the
better. Sorry. Okay. All right. So reading. So let's talk about reading to them. We talked about you can start really early.
Yes.
But also another really great thing. Sometimes I have parents, I'll tell them to read to their child more. And they're like, well, I don't speak English very well. And I don't have enough confidence to read to my child in English.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say to that parent?
I would say a couple of things. One, reading in any language is beneficial.
Yes, I would agree. Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have to be an English book that you're reading to your child if you speak a different language, right? Just reading is reading and getting that joy and that excitement and that curiosity that is developed by reading books is crucial.
And it builds a relationship.
Yes.
It's a bonding experience.
Yes, which is also so important. The second thing I would say is there's also audiobooks. So if you're trying to expose, your child to another language, right? Like they're going to an all English speaking school and you yourself are not confident in English, then audiobooks are a great resource.
And they'll help you learn the language too.
Yes.
And they're so fun. I'm a huge fan of audiobooks. And I feel like I've done audiobooks with my kids on the way to and from school for years. And they love them and they love books. And we've listened to so many things that way. And I have kids who I've mentioned before have reading disabilities. Mm-hmm. And so this was a way that I could help them keep up with their peers on the background knowledge and vocabulary, even while maybe they weren't quite caught up in the actual being able to do recognizing of words and reading themselves.
Yeah. And instead of listening to music in the car, you could listen to an audiobook.
Absolutely.
Right. So it's something that you can do just while you're running errands or driving.
And it doesn't have to cost. I mean, there are
free.
Places you can go to Audible and pay a subscription fee, but most libraries now have are connected to an app like Libby. The one I use is Libby. There's a couple others, I believe, and you just put in your library card number, and then you can
check them,
put them on hold. I don't even go to the library anymore. I just go to the app and I put on hold, and then it comes in when it's on, and it's all electronic that way. I mean, you can get electronic books as well as audiobooks that way, but it's just a really great way. So easy nowadays. You don't have to have a CD player in your car or a tape deck in your car. You just have to, I mean, it's nice to have something that'll plug your phone into the car, but even if you don't, I mean, there's times where I'm driving a car that I can't get the audio to go from my phone into the car. And so we just play it on the phone and just we're quiet, and my kids are quiet in the car. Which is so nice. It's so nice.
So nice. So peaceful.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, audiobooks is great.
Yep. I think also too that it's important as you're reading with kids too to double check by asking them questions. Oh, what is this word? What is that? Yeah. Even you could even start by stuff where it is. Oh, what is a cat? I don't know what a cat is. Yeah. What is that?
What do you think you meant by that? And talk about it. It gives you something to talk about too with your kids. Like, what do you think about that happening in the story? And
what do you think will happen next? Oh, what do you think? What should they do? Right. Maybe they should just give up. They should just give up and go home. Right. They shouldn't look for a little fluffy outside.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do want to say this too. Like, I mean, I'm a pretty big on audiobooks, but there's also something to be said to putting a small child on your lap and reading with them. And so that's why I love that you said any language, if you speak a different language, read to them in your language. And they say that knowing words in another language translates quicker into learning the new language.
Right. And I think there's something also to be said, seeing your parents read and having your parents read to you and seeing that joy and having that joyous intrinsic moment, has a positive relationship with reading. Especially for kids who might struggle or have obstacles with this. Being able to fall back on that joy of, oh my gosh, but I love reading with my mom or I love reading with my dad or my grandma or grandpa or whoever, I think that really helps motivate them to want to be able to read instead of shutting down.
Definitely. And actually I was mentioning to you, Candace, about a new model of reading now that a lot of people are talking about called the active view of reading.
Yes.
That includes motivation into the formula for becoming a great reader. And I think that is really important. And that comes a lot from reading to them. So then what about reading with them? What does that mean?
So reading with them is different. So reading with them can be done in a couple of ways. Okay. So I think there's books out there where it's like, okay, you read, I read, right? Yeah. Where it has more complex, more vocabulary opportunities. In the parents section, parents page, and then it's a very simple decodable sentence for the child to read, right? So it's almost like you're reading together. However, what I have done with my kids is when I'm first getting them away from picture books and into chapter books, because sometimes that's scary, is I will go get a pretty big chapter book that has a really interesting thing. And I'm trying to remember the one that I did with my oldest daughter because she was so scared about how many words were in chapter books.
And no pictures.
And no pictures, right? Yeah. And I'm trying to remember, it was so long ago that we did this, maybe like 8 years ago that we did this. But what I would do is I would sit right next to her and we checked out 2 copies from the library. So she had her copy and I had mine. And I would read a page and then she would read like the first 3 to 5 sentences, like almost the first paragraph, right?
Yeah.
And then I would read the rest of the page.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And so you can do that. You can also do, depending on where your reader is and what chapter book you're getting, right? Like Magic Tree House books are great for this. You read, I read. To where they can read the first sentence and then you finish the paragraph. Then they read the next sentence and you finish the paragraph. So just things like that. And then as their skills develop and their confidence builds, which is a big part of it, you can have them reading more. And then all of a sudden you can transfer into the next and very last stage, which is them reading independently. Right.
Well, I want to say a couple of things about reading with before we move into that.
No, absolutely.
Because I don't think that reading with always has to mean that they actually read the words.
Okay.
I think it can also be, you can read simple picture books and you can discuss with them things like the pictures.
Yes.
You can show them the print concepts,
yes.
like that we read from left to right.
Yep. Tracking finger as you're reading.
As you read, so they can see the periods and things like that, so that when you stop and pause
and when to move to the next
before
line.
They can even really read, you can be reading with them. Yes. And maybe when I said, have them on your lap, really anytime you have a child on your lap and you're reading to them, you're kind of reading with them. Yeah. Because you're showing them those concepts.
That's true.
You can read you can read to a child without having them sit on your lap.
Right.
Showing them the books to class showing the pictures and everything, but they're not seeing any of the words. But when they sit on your lap
and they're visually
reading, or like in a classroom, if each kid has a copy of the book, then you're reading with them. So,
I like that.
Yeah. And then reading with them also, something that's talked about a lot is repeated readings. Yeah. Where you have, I know at our school, a lot of times we do repeated readings, right? We'll read the same story more than once. And the first time we might have the whole class read together. Yep. All together on the words. And then the next time we might have like them take individual turns on it. And then you might go back and you might read. I think there's some parts where they read it a certain way, then you go back and read it to them so they can get a feel for the prosody of it, and so that helps build their confidence too and can be really helpful to them as the repeated reading. So, and then last is listening to them read. And so we want to talk a little bit about what kind of books you want to start with when you're having them do the reading. What kind of books should you get? What kind of books?
Okay, so this is something that I'm really passionate about, and I apologize if this offends anybody. I'm really sorry, but there are so many books out there that label themselves as level 1 beginner reading, and
I can read.
Yeah. Level 1 or stage 1's world of reading, all of those kinds of things. And then they say that they can read. So I actually have an excerpt from one of these particular books. These are available to check out in libraries and they're huge in stores. And, this is what parents are buying for their kids. And this is a level 1 reader. Okay. And it says, her entire class was going to, let's hit the trail, said Miss Edwards.
Those are not beginning words.
No. Those are not stage 1 reader.
And I mean, even going.
Right.
Trail.
Edwards.
That AI. Yeah, Edwards. Yeah.
Okay. And then the contraction let's. Like, those aren't beginning readers. And those are not where you should expect your kid to start if they are a beginning reader. Okay. And so I really want to hit this home because I feel like parents get these for their kids and then they're frustrated. Like, this is a stage 1. Why can't you read it? Yeah. And then it causes more of a negative experience.
What books should kids be reading when they're first learning?
Decodables.
And what is a decodable book?
A decodable book is one where it's very simple and they can sound out each sound correctly, right? It's very easy. It's none of the
where most of the words are words that they would already have learned the phonics
sounds for,
right? Yes. So I mean, they might start out really simple, and most reading programs have decodable stories within them based on what they just learned,
right?
But decodable books, you can get sets, and you can buy sets as decodable books where it's very simple. Right. Dr. Seuss books were kind of the first real like decodable books. You like hop on pop, because you've got that short vowel, hop on pop, the closed syllables.
Yep.
And they're very simple words that kids can read. This is from hop on pop.
Pup. And then it turns it into a sentence. Pup is up. Right. So like this would be an example like of a decodable. Bob books I know are a huge hit, but sometimes those ones aren't even decodable, depending on the words that they've thrown in there.
Exactly. And that's the tricky thing about decodables is it depends on what the kids have learned. And every program might introduce different sounds and things like that in a different order. And so it can be tricky to find decodable books, but from my understanding is that the decodable books don't have to be 100% decodable.
Right.
Because they need to be exposed to words that they don't know, and you can teach them.
Right.
But they should be like at least 80% decodable.
Right. It needs to be something they can feel success at.
That's the key.
Right.
Success.
I also feel like it's important when you're looking at books that there isn't a picture that they can use to guess.
So something that's really popular with little kids is what they call predictable books.
Yes.
And these are books like the best example I can think of is Brown Bear. I think we mentioned this before.
Yes, we've talked about it.
Mm-hmm. That's just what pops in my mind whenever I think about predictable. But I know there's a lot of predictable books out there. But Brown Bear, what do you see? I see it, and then it shows a picture of something. So the kids
on the next page. So it's Brown Bear, what do you see? I know this isn't the right order, but a yellow duck looking at me. So it has the paragraph up in the top left-hand corner where it says Brown Bear, what do you see? Then it has a picture of a brown bear. And then on the right-hand side on the bottom, it says, I see a yellow duck looking at me, or whatever the next animal is, right? And then you turn the page and it's a big picture of a big yellow duck. And then it's yellow duck, what do you see? And so it's very predictable.
And I just want to say that what a fun book, Brown Bear. Most predictable books are really fun.
Yes.
And this is why they've gotten to be popular, because they're fun, they have great pictures, and the kids feel confident because they feel like they can read it. But the truth is they're not really reading. That's the key. They're predicting. Which is a whole language.
I would say predicting is a high level guess.
Yes. So they don't have to know how to sound out words to read predictable books.
Right.
And so that's one reason they're popular. But the truth is they're not going to help the kids get better at reading.
Right. So we're not saying you shouldn't use these. You totally can.
Right.
We're just
They're
saying,
great books to read with your kid.
Yes. Right. Don't teach your kid to read by them.
Right.
Yes.
When it's time for you to say, okay, let's practice your reading skills. That is not the book to use. You need to be using decodables either from the program that they're learning or other books that are decodable and the truth is one reason people don't like decodables is because they're not very literarily sophisticated.
Yes. Right.
They're very simple.
Not a lot of
pop on pop.
Right. It's and yes.
And Dr. Seuss is a master at them.
Yes.
Because he knows how to make them fun with illustrations and everything. But
right. And a lot of nonsense words for sure. But you have to start with the foundation, right? Like math 1 + 1, right? Or before you even get to 1 + 1, you have to learn what the number 1 looks like, right? And teaching, hey, this is the number 1 isn't the most fun, exciting mathematical conquest, you know. But
and
you
then
have
even
to start
memorizing the math facts, like learning the math facts. Learning the concept of what addition is not the same as knowing that 6 + 2 is 8,
right?
Without having to like count it on your fingers or figure it out with manipulatives every single time,
right?
And so that's the key. It's the practice, right? Reading is a skill-based subject.
Yeah,
it's not something where you can just teach them like science and history.
Yeah,
you teach them knowledge, whereas reading is a skill. You can't just say, okay, this sound says. This sound says ah, and this sound says If you put them all together, it says Sam. And they know. So once they know the sounds, they should be able to read anything, right? It's not as simple as that because they have to practice.
Yeah.
They need lots of practice for every sound that they learn. They need lots of practice seeing that sound and reading it.
Yes.
And the more practice they get, the more proficient they will become in reading when they see those.
And it changes too from at,
right,
cat to cat, right? Like the more they practice, it changes in fluidity.
And they should be sounding out words if they don't know them. Now there are a lot of words that don't sound out so easily,
right? Which we talked about, and that's a whole different thing. But that's why you start with decodable readers with sounds that they know,
right? But I'm thinking about basic words like was,
Right.
which are often in decodables. We call those like, people might call them heart words or
high frequency words, sight words, all of those
and
things.
so teaching them those, sometimes they do have to understand that those don't necessarily follow the rules.
Which is why a good decodable book will have almost like a word attack page to practice, right? Or a word wrap or whatever, just in front the very first thing. Right. I've written a couple. Yes. You know, they're not published yet. Let me know if that's something you guys would be interested in. I'm on the fence on whether or not I should publish these. But I've written quite a few decodable stories with word wraps and things and different activities, starting very, very basic, going all the way through, you know, irregular vowel teams. But let us know if that's something that you would be interested in. Right. Maybe we'll
for sure
get on that.
It's definitely on our ideas of things to do. Yeah. Okay. So I think that pretty much wraps up reading to your kids. That's the basics. And hopefully we've been helpful to you in knowing what to read and how to read with your kids.
Yep. So just remember the 3 important things: reading to them, reading with them, and listening to them.
Read.
Yes.
Awesome. So thanks for joining us today. We will see you next time.
Yes, on episode 11. Remember, if you have any comments or questions, we would love to hear them. Email us at candiceandbell@gmail.com, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.